Episode 3 of Disney's Doctor Who is titled Boom and marks the return of Stephen Moffat to the show. And just as a side note, we're calling it Disney's Doctor Who because Disney have basically bought the rights to this one and decided to segregate it away from the rest of New Who. I digress. We start with a blind soldier called John Vader being led through a minefield alongside a guy called Carson. There's fog covering the place and the blind man rings his daughter, telling her to brush her teeth and go to bed. When she hangs up, we cut back to the battlefield. There's a massive problem though. Right ahead happens to be an ambulance, and not the safe conventional type either. Unfortunately, Carson finds himself stumbling over and onto a mine. When he dematerializes, this ambulance shows up and kills John Vader for not being combat ready. Just as this occurs, the Doctor shows up in his TARDIS alongside Ruby. He rushes out, realizes someone is in trouble, and steps on a mine. Thankfully, he has his trusty sonic screwdriver. Oh wait, no he doesn't. And nobody has bothered to mention it once in this episode. Anyway, Ruby heads out from the TARDIS and follows the ominous singing to where the Doctor is located. He tells her to watch her fitting. Notably, he doesn't ask her to get his screwdriver or use the TARDIS in any way to help him out. The Doctor hasn't dematerialized as the mine happens to be on a live sensor. He needs to stay incredibly still because one wrong move and the Doc will go boom. They're in the middle of a battlefield, and after Ruby explains what the mine looks like, the Doctor gives us some exposition to explain further. These mines were created by a company called Villengard, biggest weapons manufacturer in recorded history. So, forgetting that the Doctor has a sonic screwdriver that could help, given the landmine is presumably metal, his sonic screwdriver doesn't work on wood, remember, he instead tells Ruby to check on the screaming and also find a big rock too. She doesn't find a rock, but does find a rather suggestive item that's very veiny and cylindrical.
Ew, what's that? What's that, brother?
Apparently it's a dead body, compressed and smelted down, and then the Doctor asks her to toss it over. Ruby refuses to throw it though, and instead wanders down, using her blind faith in him to try and save the Time Lord. Now, I use the words blind faith for a reason, because there's a segment in this episode that brings up faith and its role to play, and it's quite ironic the message that this episode gives, given what Ruby's just done here. Anyway, the adrenaline spike for passing over the body causes the landmine to continue blinking through the limited time the Doctor has left. Thankfully, there's enough juice left to prevent the Doctor from going boom just yet. The body happens to be voice activated, and after activating it, the Time Lord realizes that there's a big business for war here, and although blindness isn't actually fatal, it is in this conflict. Things take a turn for the worst when Splice, John's daughter, shows up at the battlefield. She recognises the AI construct of her dad and rushes over. Ruby stops her though, and that's when Mundy shows. She's an Anglican Marine who's watching over Mundy. Ruby is shocked that she's a soldier. Of course, this isn't the first time in Doctor Who that the Doc has encountered religious soldiers, and that episode, which is a two-parter featuring the Weeping Angels in season 5 I believe, was also written by Moffat. The Doctor speaks to Mundy, who explains that they're fighting a war against the Castarians. They've never actually seen them, but apparently they're akin to sentient mud. This chatter is interrupted by Ruby and Mundy, who decide to create a fake combat scenario to distract the ambulance. Unfortunately, Ruby is shot by one of the soldiers. The ambulance scans her, but it doesn't recognise a next of kin. With Ruby passed out, the Doctor tells the soldiers that the only way out of this one is to surrender. In giving up, it'll turn off all the landmines. The thing is, there's nobody on this planet, and the only thing here is the algorithm, and the algorithm is keeping them fighting their own shadows. The Doctor has some choice words to say about faith, including how it keeps you from never having to think for yourself. Given this is supposed to be a kid's show, and as someone with kids myself, it's a bit of a negative message to give, isn't it? Especially as this mantra is basically never have faith in anything and give up, which completely contradicts Ruby's actions earlier on in the episode when she actually used blind faith to walk over to the Doctor, believing that it wasn't going to blow up and using her courage to do right by him. Since we're on this train of thought, I'm going to go off script a little bit here because this message about faith actually pisses me off. Now, I'm not religious, but this entire episode is a contradiction of ideas. The way that Moffat's written this episode is we're basically told not to have blind faith in anything, despite the Doctor demonstrably showing how good this is over the past seasons. We don't count Whittaker's Doctor here because her morality is just as twisted as this Doctor, but it basically goes against the entire ethos of the Doctor and what he stands for. I mean, what's worse is that we don't just get the message of faith and religion is bad, we get the Doctor showing that he needs to have faith in other people, i.e. Ruby, to save him from this landmine. And the fact that he's just standing there and just preaching to people about how bad faith is a little ironic. And then, even worse, when we get to the end of this episode, his last words are to basically tell the little girl, keep the faith, despite showing how he hates faith, apparently. Honestly, this is a complete mess, and that's before even mentioning some of the previous episodes where the Doctor has actually seen gods. He's actually faced off against different gods. I mean, even in New Who, you have the Doctor literally going up against the devil. It's Absolutely bonkers that this is even in the series, let alone in this episode, and the message is so contradictory. It's tough as a huge Doctor Who fan myself not to just roll my eyes constantly at this part. But anyway, I digress. Let's continue. Only the Bishop can trigger a surrender. They need to use the ambulance to show off the algorithm, and only then can those words be uttered and save everyone. With 3 minutes and counting until everything explodes, the random soldier who shows up, Kanto, dies.
Oh no! Anyway.
Well, I mean, we almost got to know a bit of his personality, but he dies right there and turns into another body. The Doctor's plan seems to backfire, as a whole bunch of ambulances show and decide that John Vater is going to be deleted from the system. The landmine looks set to go off, and then it doesn't. It turns out the AI of John has infiltrated the Villain Guard system. The landmine is deactivated, and the Doctor then takes John's body and sniffs it deeply.
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
After this, the war is finished and the Doctor breathes a sigh of relief. He says goodbye to the humans, and as he steps back in the TARDIS with Ruby and prepares to leave, we see a single snowflake drifting lazily through the air. That is where this episode comes to an end. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.